What do you do when someone says, I have to think about it, it's too expensive, I can't afford it, I have to talk to my significant other, yada, yada, yada. We're gonna cover that in today's video, which is part 2 of the final step of the 8-step inception flow. We're gonna cover everything about objection handling, right? So this is gonna be a very, very important video because if you're up to this step, you know that you have qualified the prospect, you have made your pitch, and now you're getting some kind of resistance, which is going to be the topic of today, right? What's very, very important that you must understand if you are closing for yourself, your company, or somebody else is you must understand the difference between resistance and the difference between objection, okay? A lot of people will actually come on here and they will say stuff like, okay, well, I can't afford it, right? They'll say, well, Dylan, how do I overcome the objection of I can't afford it? Right? Well, there's one thing you must understand, okay? This is gonna be different than any type of objection handling video you have probably ever watched before, right? Because I believe in keeping things stupid simple. Simple is not only easy for yourself, but simple is also duplicatable. So I would rather build up my process and for my business or for my team or for myself or for others to teach it to that is duplicatable and that could be repeated over and over again to where I can leverage social proof. So I'm gonna put here, social proof, to help with overcoming an objection, right? And I'll get more into that in a moment. But so let's say someone says, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I see on Facebook and posts and forums, and people do this all the time because they wanna drive up comments and engagement, and they think it's funny, and they're like, hey guys, what's your best way to overcome I can't afford it? And a whole bunch of comments supporting, and everyone always says the same thing. They always go, well, if they say I can't afford it, that means you didn't generate enough value. No. That is not true. Let me give you an example. I see the value of a Gulfstream jet. Let's say this jet, I don't know how much they are, I'm just gonna spitball here. Let's say it's $23 million. I think the jet is worth $23 million. I think it's worth paying for the jet for $23 million, okay? Does that mean I can afford it? Absolutely not. At the time I am recording this video, like knock on wood, just today, eventually I hope that I can afford the Gulfstream jet. I would like to have a Gulfstream jet. And over time, as a goal, I will build up my skills, build up my business, and get to the point where I can afford a jet. But right now, I physically cannot afford it. It does not mean I cannot see the value of it. It just literally means this is not an objection. As of today, there's no type of payment plan you could possibly put me on that's gonna put me, to be able to go and afford the fuel and everything that's involved to a jet. I'm not the qualified avatar currently today. Now, that does not mean in the case of what it is that you are selling, that if you did your job, and let's lower this down, right? I've had tons of prospects who, even like a 5K or a 997 program, whatever, who has been in the position who saw the value and at the time of the call could not afford it. But because I followed the 8 steps and because I closed them on a new identity, within 30 to 60 days later, they actually followed through and did whatever it took to be able to go to the point where they could afford it. So I want you to understand something. Like, just because it does not mean that they don't see the value in it. Some people legitimately at the time just cannot afford it. But closing is about action. Closing is about timing. Closing is about getting them at a time in the life where it makes sense. Flash forward, again, knock on wood. Flash forward to the next 20 years, hopefully you can come to me where the timing is right, to where I can afford a jet. And if you ask me at that time, boom, I'm ready. Timing is correct in my life, right? So just understand timing matters. Now, I can afford it, right? There's a difference between I can't afford it and that's expensive. Wait a second. So if someone says I can't afford it, that doesn't mean they don't see the value. But if someone says, well, wait a second, that's too expensive, right? Too expensive means they don't value it. You didn't do your job. You didn't build up the value correctly. So I want to clarify that first. So one thing you must understand when it comes to an objection, when it comes to the close, how to overcome objections, what to do next, is you must understand the difference between resistance and objection, right? So most people think that when it comes to objection, they say like, hey, I have to think about it, right? I have to think about it. And people always ask me, well, Dylan, what do you say? What do you do? How do you overcome the objection? I have to think about it. Question: how do you know what the objection is if they say I have to think about it? Because I'm going to tell you, I have to think about it is not an objection. I have to think about it is resistance. And as a closer, it is your job to determine what the objection is. Which now leads us to the question, well, Dylan, the $1 million question. What is an objection? I like to relate to objections as, there's three things, right? If you follow the chosen one, Russell Brunson, he explains it best in his book. There are three types of objections, right? And they come down to beliefs. There's an internal belief, there's an external belief, and then there is the vehicle, right? So if I'm talking to a prospect and I'm selling a program on, it could be anything. Let's say keto or Facebook ads. These are the products, right? These are the vehicles. I don't know if the prospect has an objection to Facebook ads. Maybe there's a belief about Facebook ads that that has to be overcome. An internal belief, right? Maybe internally they think that if they have to do it themselves, a tech issue, older individuals, tech, right? Maybe they're like, oh, you know what? I'm too old. I can't run Facebook ads, or I can't diet and do a workout because I'm in my 60s. I'm too old to move around like that, right? That would be an internal belief, right? So if you come to me and you say, Dylan, I got this objection. I don't know how to overcome it. They said I have to think about it. Well, I'm going to say, well, what's the actual objection? You're going to be like, huh? It is your job as a closer to go deeper into this and say, well, what does that mean? What does it have to think about? And you do this through asking questions and follow-up. It is my job to determine, okay, I have to think about it. What is it? Is it internal? Is it external? Or is it an objection to the vehicle? Do they have a problem with keto? Do they just think keto is not going to work for them? Right? External factor. So internal means something, an internal belief, something we believe in ourselves. Example given, I'm old, I can't do tech-savvy stuff, right? Or I can't do this, I can't become an entrepreneur because I look like I'm 12. Not me. I'm look old as crap. But let's say you have a baby face and you look like you're 12, but you're really in your 20s. You don't think someone will take you seriously. So I can't get into business because I have a baby face, right? They're not going to come out and just tell you that. They're going to say, oh, I have to think about it, right? Well, I have to think about it is resistance. So it is your job to see the overlaying top factor, right? Resistance is just the layer of fat. The layer of fat covering the muscle. The objection is the actual muscle. You must get through the layer of fat and figure out what the objection is. Because if you can figure out what the objection is, you can get them to move forward. Here's the best part. I learned this in my closing career back when I was in car sales, right? And my manager, I'll never forget to this day, he actually told me that anytime you don't get an objection and you don't get resistance, it is actually a bad thing. In fact, if you pitch something to somebody and they're an actual buyer, right, they want to reconfirm their decision and they want to be sold on it, right? But if they don't give you an objection or resistance, that's actually a bad thing. You should be terrified. Terrified. Objections are a good thing. Objections come from buyers, right? So if everything's going perfectly, you've done your job, you just, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer, blah, blah, blah. Like literally your guard should be up. I've trained myself for this. I get super nervous. When everything seems too good to be true and it's going perfectly, one of my clients that I'm partnering with in our business, she always laughs at me because when things going perfectly, I'm like, I don't like it. That was too easy. I was telling her, that was too easy. I don't like that. She's like, oh, you're always paranoid in that, right? And sometimes I'm right? And other times I actually do move forward. But I've trained myself to be paranoid when it becomes too easy, right? Because I love objections. I know the more of these I can overcome and the more resistance I can peel back, the higher the chance that they're going to not only move forward, but they're going to be an amazing customer. Their belief is going to be even higher, right? So, which leads to the next question, right? How do you actually get to the case of what the actual objection is? One of the ways to do it is literally, I like to call this the elephant in the room. Elephant in the room, right? Sometimes, based on the call, or based on if you know your audience, which you should, if you've taken a lot of sales calls, you can typically know things. Like, so for instance, let's say Facebook ads, for example, right? You have an agency. And a lot of times, everything goes perfect, and you make all these you promise them all this stuff. You're going to do these things. You're going to run ads. You're going to get them leads, and then they're like, "Oh, you do all this stuff," and then in reality, they say I have to think about it. And maybe it's an external factor. And the external belief is it could be twofold. It could be an external and the vehicle. They could really believe that Facebook ads doesn't work. And the reason why they believe that is because externally they've been burned in the past. Right? This comes up all the time. They've been burned in the past by marketers who have agencies and they've lost money. Then they say, you know what, I have to think about it. Okay, well, great. Listen. So the first thing you want to do is you want to always reaffirm everything, their goals, okay? So when this comes up and you get resistance, you don't know what the objection is. If you can assume the objection, you can just ask them. That's fine. But so the first thing you want to do is reaffirm their goals, right? So in this case, if you guys remember in the other videos before this, make sure you guys, if you're not caught up to this point, you go into the description below, you watch the playlist so you catch up to this, watch steps 1 through 2. But the example we'd given for Facebook ads was, let's pretend that this prospect for Facebook ads, you know, originally their goal in step 4 was 10K a month, and I talked them into making their goal bigger, right? I increased their identity and said, well, why not 25K a month, right? Now, if I did my job as a closer and I took notes and I drew my line, well, now when we get to this step, I can go back to step 4 and say, well, listen, I know that through helping you that your goal is to get to 25K a month in the next 3 months, right? So listen, if, and let's say that the Facebook ads was a 15K sign up fee, right? Now listen, if we can help you, just like insert story, which I'll get to this in a second. Storytelling is going to become your best friend, just so you guys know. So stories is going to get you through resistance, and it's going to get you to the objection. It's also going to be what you're going to use to overcome objections, okay? Which we're going to get to the toolbox in here in a moment, okay? So if we were to help you, like, you know, prospect A, right? Like, listen, prospect A thought the same thing. Their goal was low. Not only did they crush 25K in their first month, but they were off to the races of 40K in month 2, right? Let's say that's one of your case studies. And listen, most of the time when somebody says, right, I have to think about it, it's really because they not know they think they're going to get results, but they probably have lost money before, or they've been burned in the past by other marketers. Mr. Prospect, let me ask you a question. Is that the case here? Did you happen to, because I know you said you tried this before, did you lose a lot of money? Did you get burned? Yes, that's really what happened, right? Awesome. What I literally was able to do is, instead of just saying, okay, I have to think about it, I'm able to go a little bit deeper and bring up the elephant in the room, which 9 times out of 10 in the case of Facebook ads, they've probably been burned in the past. Bring up the elephant in the room and ask them, say, hey, most people that I speak to, like really, because I think about it, is because they've lost money or they've been burned in the past. Is that the case is going here? Yes, great. Now I know what the objection is. The objection is either they don't think Facebook can work, or it's an external belief. They've been burned in the past and they don't think that working with us could possibly help them because all other people doing agencies are screwing them over, right? So now you get to go and obtain the objection. Now, so how do we overcome the objection? Without using tactics, again, keep it simple. This is where your toolbox comes in. So before you get into closing calls, or closing for yourself or somebody else, you want to take every case study, every testimonial that is in your arsenal for who you're closing for or yourself that you have, and the best stories, you want to have a link to a video of the stories that relate to every single one of these: internal, external, and vehicle. This process requires time. This process also requires research. You need to know your audience so well of what it is that you're selling for keto and fitness, right? What's an internal belief of your audience that you're selling to? What's a possible external belief, right? What do most people believe about Facebook ads? What do most people believe about ketogenic diet? Whatever it is that you're selling, right? And you must have stories, success stories, and case studies relating to that individual. So, for instance, if I had a case study of an individual who signed up with me into a Facebook ad program, and maybe say they signed up 4 months ago, and in this scenario, in month 3, they went from 12K a month to 40K a month in 3 months, right? So literally more than double their revenue. But they were also burned in the past, right? So what I would want is, I want to relate to this prospect as I think about it. Oh, you've been burned in the past? Listen, so was Michael. right? In fact, Michael was so skeptical to work with us because Michael lost over $100,000. Actually, I'll give you a real example. We actually have a guy that's in a program with one of my clients, who, my client that I oversee her sales organization and her team. She does marketing. She does ads and all this stuff for people. And she has a client in her program that lost over $100,000 into another coach who was supposed to help him with marketing and another agency that was supposed to help him with marketing, right? So his story, he actually got on Zoom and he said in the camera, he's like, listen, I've lost over, I hate to say this, but I've lost over $100,000, right? 30K here, 70K here, investing in these other programs. And he's like, and literally within the 4 short weeks, you're the only person who has been able to help me with my offer, right? That's super, super powerful for him to say. So now in any case, when someone says that, hey, I've lost money, been burned in the past, guess what I get to do? Guess what my team gets to do? The only way they have to do to overcome that is just say, listen, they have to tell that story. So you yourself as a closer need to know the stories of all your case studies that relate to just these 3 things like the back of your hand. You should be practicing telling the stories over and over and over and over until you're just sick of them. Practice in the mirror, practice telling it, enunciating, telling their story. And then bonus tip, if you actually have it on video and you can get a link to the video in your toolbox. What is the toolbox? All toolbox is just document. This could be a Word document. We use Word documents. Toolbox is just going to be your social proof. I call it a social proof toolbox. And this is where you list out internal, external, and vehicle, and you put a link to all the stories that overcomes those objections. And then on the top of it, another good thing that you can do is you can also put in the top section resistance. So resistance and objections and what kind of resistance comes up. So as a closer, whenever you get to the part of pitching your close, if resistance comes up all the time, like maybe it's I have to think about it or whatever it is, what you want to do is whatever story you tell or whatever line you say to get them to the objection, you add it to the toolbox. Whatever the actual objection is, you have that story that overcomes it to the toolbox. The toolbox is forever and always ongoing. Sometimes you'll have a crazy story that helps with external from somebody that's in your program, or an internal belief, right? That is just so good, you're going to want to go and add it to your toolbox or replace one of the other ones. You can have multiple stories. It's not a big deal. Do not overcomplicate this. The whole purpose of this is if I can train myself and I can train my team to know that anytime someone says I have to think about it, to be able to tell a story about the elephant in the room related to somebody being burned in the past, if this is an example, if it was like Facebook ads, right? Then, and the actual objection is something to do with the vehicle and being burned in the past, and all they have to do is tell this one story, then that is something I can duplicate myself, and that is something my team can duplicate because you want the social proof in the story to overcome the objection. One thing you can also do is literally take the link and send it to the prospect and show it to them live. So if you're on the phone, how powerful would it be if you're just like, listen, I know you've been burned in the past, and so has so-and-so, right? So has Michael. Michael's been burned in the past in his first 4 months. Not only was he only at $12K a month after losing X amount with all these other companies, but 3 months later, he's now at $40,000 a month. In fact, don't hear it from me, hear it from Michael. You in front of it, you have your phone? Awesome, cool. Let me do something real quick. Give me 5 minutes, let me send this over to you. Let me know when you get this text message. Boom, send him a text message, link. Go ahead and watch that for me real quick. I want you to see it for yourself. Guys, how powerful is it for somebody on the phone? Like I know everyone talks about this, the simple, easy trick and this tactic and this skill of overcoming objections. You know what skill is going to overcome objections? Simplicity, duplication, stories, social proof. Let the social proof and the stories overcome the objection so that everyone else who are your case studies can overcome that objection for you. Literally make it so idiot proof, right? I even did this in car sales. When I sold my very first car, very first one, right? I got a video of the guy, super nice old man. He knew I was new, and he bought his car, and I took a video of him on my phone, and asked him about what he liked about the vehicle. Just asked him some questions. I think his reasoning behind getting the vehicle was he bought the car because his grandchild had just turned, I think 17 and got her license, was going to come down to visit. And he knew that he wanted to see his granddaughter. So every time his granddaughter had come into town, he wanted safety was the thing for the vehicle. So he just wanted to know that it was going to be reliable and it was going to be safe. So his pain point was safety, right? So I had that video in my arsenal on my phone, and anytime I ever spoke to a family and it was a parent buying a vehicle for their child, guess what I did? I pulled out my phone and I hit the play button and I showed it to them. And I let the social proof do the work of handling the part of the vehicle, in this case an actual vehicle, not metaphorically, recurring for safety, okay? So your toolbox is going to be a document that is going to all forever and always be there for you and your team, and you will have all the stories here, and as a bonus, you want to have links to it so that all you can do is let the case studies overcome the objections for you. Because listen, this is not a perfect process. This takes refinement. This takes time. This takes a lot of calls, right? So as you're going on your journey, which you should be, hopefully you're not here today watching the 8 steps just to be like, okay, well, I'm going to do one call and cross my fingers and pray that this person is going to be qualified. And then boom, I'm going to close the deal. And if it doesn't work, you're like, oh, well, the 8 steps didn't work and I'm just not made out for sales. I'm a horrible closer, yada, yada. No, you should always be taking call after call after call after call and refining. And through refinement, you're going to get better at knowing what kind of resistance are we running into. Guys, we use this for outbound. Like this process right here, these are the 8 steps, could be like literally just scheduled inbound calls, right? Now imagine using this from like cold calling, booking appointments, and taking somebody who's never heard of you before through this process and still closing deals, right? This process absolutely works, right? This works for outbound, this works for inbound, this works for taking people through an identity change, and the toolbox is super, super powerful. I first created this concept when we use this on our team. I created an ebook explaining this, literally the internal, external vehicle, creating this into a toolbox, and had posted the ebook online and said, hey, does anyone want a copy of this ebook? I'm giving away completely for free. This is how we overcome objections. I got 3 emails a week later, and one of them said, dude, I applied your toolbox to the stories and stuff to here, and I made $9,000 this week. Not in deals, like commissions. He closed and made $9,000 in that week in commissions just applying this. He said it was super, super powerful, right? 2 other emails were all telling me about how they use it and implement it and we're closing deals, right? But the 9K was the one that's most memorable to me because it's powerful. And so now, same thing like I'm telling you. Why am I telling you that story? Because stories sell. I'm telling you to build your belief in the toolbox and the external and leveraging these stories so you will remember it. If it was good enough for him to, and he just got that from a freaking PDF document, I'm telling you this right now in video form of how to use and incorporate this process, and I promise you it is absolutely going to work. So when it comes to closing, remember, always ask yourself, whenever the prospect says something to you, why are they saying this? So you want to ask yourself, why are they saying this? Why? Why did they bring this up? And is this an internal, external vehicle? If you don't know, just ask. Like, listen, most of the time people say this is because of this, this, or this. What's the case here, right? Get to the root cause. Why are they saying this? And bring up the elephant in the room. It is okay to have the courage to just literally say, "Lo, what's going on?" You had told me earlier, you guys could both agree that what we're charging is fair, right? Yes, okay. So you know that what we're charging is fair, and you know that you see the value in it, correct? Yes, okay, awesome. So you know that if we were to work in accountability, you know that we can actually help you get to your goal. So what's the real issue? Just literally ask them. Say, what's really going on here? What's going on here? What do we got to do to be able to help you make an educated decision? And what do we got to do to be able to get you to move forward? Because I'm confident we can help you. And what it tells me is, I know I'm confident in my abilities. I'm confident we can do. But I got to make sure, are you confident in yourself? What's really going on here? Is it an issue between trust of us, or is it an issue of trust into your capabilities of having help and actually implementing, right? So that is how you build the toolbox to overcome objections. This is how you know what the difference between resistance and objections is. Hopefully, after watching this video, if there's any takeaway from this that would make me so, so happy is if you ever are with a buddy and they say, hey, I ran into this objection and it was not related to internal, external vehicle. It was literally something surface level, like I have to think about it, or they said that's expensive, or I can't afford it. Hopefully your takeaway from this video, you will be able to look at your buddy and you will be able to be like, you know what, that's actually not an objection. That's actually resistance. What's the true objection? And they're gonna be like, I don't know. Exactly, that's the problem. It is your job as a closer to ask the right questions and determine, what's the root cause? Is it internal, external vehicle? I must dig a little bit deeper, figure it out, overcome that, and you can get them to move forward. And that is it for the 8th and final step of the Inception 8-step flow. I'm super, super pumped and excited to be able to teach all of this stuff to you. And just so you know, all this entire series was something I've taught in an actual outbound paid acquisition course program that now I wanted to transition to teaching to everyone for free. I actually had an individual, I'll try to find the video, on a coaching call that we taught this to, who was closing for another sales company. There was literally, he was closing sales training, and it was a $4,000 program that he's closing. And he literally told me, he's like, dude, this entire 8 steps and everything I'm doing and implementing for my calls is way more valuable than the $4,000 program that I am currently selling, right? And when that hit me, I knew I have to get this out there, right? And because the issue when it comes to closing is a lot of people just don't have opportunities. Maybe you're starting out. Maybe you're trying to build your own business and you're just trying to get your first sales. Or maybe you're brand new and you finally got a closing opportunity and you want to win, right? I would rather get this information out there and have someone go out and execute on it and win and get value from it than anything else, instead of just trying to go on and just continually scale a low ticket course for sales like everybody else does, because it's like I would rather just get it out there and help you guys out, right? I prefer working with people and coaching. I prefer coaching teams. I prefer coaching business owners, and I prefer doing coaching with people who are closing at a much super high ticket level, because I can give them a huge return on investment and results compared to somebody who's just getting going. So if you are just getting going, I promise you, if you put in the numbers and you follow the 8 steps, you're going to get tons of value. Let me know your thoughts of this entire 8 steps flow series in the comments below. If you like this, please subscribe to the channel. Be notified of future videos that's going to be coming out on YouTube. And also, make sure you also click the link below and join my B2B Facebook group if you are trying to get into B2B sales. If you are serious about high ticket, not B2C, I'm talking high ticket, right? You're trying to get in the B2B industry, start your own B2B company, sell at high ticket, or close for somebody else that's in B2B, definitely check out the Facebook group. We will do live coaching calls that's going more in depth than the 8 steps. And you can even hop on and be notified when we do call breakdowns and submit your call over to me. We'll hop on Zoom with you and everybody else in the group, and we can actually break it down and help you map out the 8 steps for your own call, just to be able to give you value in this free group. Thank you guys so much for your time. I hope that you enjoyed this series. Please go and implement and share with me anytime you guys have wins. Let me know when you incorporate one of the steps and what your win was in the comments below. I'll see you guys in future episodes on my channel. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful week.